Hey everybody, it's Henry at Mowers and Blowers. The next day now, some dude's coming over to check out the John Deere, and I'm gonna try to stay firm on the price. I wanted $575. I did the 75 on there just so that I could talk it down. There's room, because I'd be happy with 500. So if I can get 575, it's great. 550, that's great too. 525, that's good too. But I'm not going under 500 because you know why? I'll keep it for 500. 500's nothing. 500 is like 6 tanks of fuel for my car. I mean, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Need to find a time to put the deck on. But today, I'm actually going to address the reason why this, why my buddy Pete Lombadi didn't sell this is because he says the governor has issues, and that when you start the engine, it revs uncontrollably at high RPMs. He shut it off before it blew. So I think maybe the engine is still good. It just requires the governor to be addressed. I was watching Terrell Fixes All, and he actually has some really good videos on how to take apart a Kohler Courage. And basically this Kohler Courage, the sump is made on the top, which is completely retarded, right? One of the issues is, as you know, the valve cover always leaks because it has a Cork gasket, and the design is just really bad. That oil sits on the very bottom of that valve cover and eventually drips out from that Cork gasket deteriorating. Also, the sump has so much vibration on the top that the bolts that hold the sump cover onto the engine always vibrates loose. When it vibrates loose, it pops up slowly, obviously leaks oil through the gasket because it's loose, right? And then the flywheel shears off the bolts. So a lot of broken bolts usually on the top. So that's a stupid design. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take everything apart on the top, and that's the only good thing about it, is that I don't have to remove the engine, flip it upside down, and take the sump off to see, because there's access to that area from the top. So I can just leave the engine as is and then see what's up with that governor over there. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 to get this top shroud off, take the dipstick off, air cleaner cover off, just to get it out of the way. I believe this has to be removed too, because this is actually, it controls the throttle forward and backwards. Anyway, so I'll try to set up a cam and do a time lapse on me doing this. I think time lapse is better instead of me having to stop and film and stop and film, and my hands are all gooey and I'm touching the camera and the lens gets all, you know what I'm saying. Things are slowly getting out of control. I've got too much stuff going on. I've got to start selling some stuff. Otherwise, I'm going to have to use my backyard as storage. And I don't want to seem ghetto. Hey, well, I am the Asian redneck. So I don't know why my camera shut off during that hyperlapse. It wasn't much after that. But anyway, so I successfully took off the sump cover. And you know what? That's the governor shaft right there. I don't see anything wrong with it other than the fact that it's got a little play in it. I don't know whether or not that's normal or not. But it looks like to be in good condition, you know. moves as it should to control the throttle. Maybe this thing just wasn't adjusted right, you know. I don't see anything other than that little play there, but I think that, you know, that's what all lawnmowers is, some play there, you know. Gears look good. You can see the timing dot there. It looks right to me, you know. Gotta be careful not to get anything dirty. Plastic cams. Compression release. There's only one washer on that side. But surprisingly, the sump cover was on very tight. You know, usually the problems with these engines is that the bolts are very loose. You know. Crankshaft gear's good. I mean, this is the counterbalance, I think. I've never seen this before. Here's the sump cover. There's the governor. Looks good. It's not stripped. I don't see anything wrong with it, guys. So I don't know what my buddy Pete Lombadi's problem that he experienced is caused by, you know. I guess I'll wait until Pete watches this video so you can tell me what he thinks it is. The only thing wrong with it now is the gasket, which I busted to get it open to look at it. But yeah. I guess I'm gonna do some more research on this and figure out exactly what the problem was, because from the naked eye, without taking the cams out, I don't want to take the cams out and look more, because, well, I'm not quite sure how to put it back together again in case, you know, once you pull something drops out and it was supposed to be pressured at this amount of torque, whatever, and, you know, that kind of thing. But I'll just cover this up with like a towel or something, make sure nothing falls in there, and probably do some more research before I keep going at it. But from the naked eye, I don't really see anything wrong with it. You know, there's no obvious signs of any damage or scrapes or anything like that. You know, I'll take a better look at it with a flashlight and stuff, but looks okay to me. So I've been having a hell of a time. I figured I'd try to at least put the sump cover back on again, just so I know how to do it, you know. And let me tell you, man, that's a pain. So you see that? That's the governor gear, and it's in the way of the cam gear, right? So it's really difficult for me to match up those gears, and at the same time, you have that thing. That, you know what, let me take this off so you can see. Alright. So, I'm having a hell of a time. Remember, this goes like that, okay? So this part here has to match up with this one perfectly. And so this moves easily. And this moves easily. So this has to match up perfectly with that, right? And at the same time, this gear has to match up perfectly over here. And there's some give too, you know? Look, it moves like that. So I have to try to push that like that so that this will go in here. So while I was screwing around with this and that and the other thing, obviously I can't find anything wrong with any of that stuff, right? But then as I was tracing this, right, I was looking there, and then I noticed that the carburetor wasn't really flush with the it was crooked. So it wasn't really flush with the engine block. So I pulled it out a little bit, and hiding behind the gasket, okay, you guys see that? So hiding behind the gasket, there you go. This right bolt is not all the way in. See what I'm saying? So that little 2 millimeters sticking out causes this carburetor to not be flush with the engine block, right? Therefore, you're going to have leakage there, air leakage there. It's not a good, seal right there. See? Yeah, there's like a millimeter of space in between there. So I think that might have been the reason why Pete saw that there was surging and stuff with high revs, is because the carburetor wasn't completely attached right to the engine block. I mean, that's what I'm thinking, because I personally can't find anything wrong with the governor. Could that just been it, you know? I'm gonna try to put this back on again. Yes, I know this gasket's all screwed up and stuff like that, but you know what? Just to test, I mean, I think it'll be alright, as long as I tighten the bolts pretty well, you know? I mean, just at least to test, I could kind of figure out if that's the problem or not. The gasket is pretty okay throughout here, except for this part right there, right? It's gone. But the other part is still there, so I'm hoping that if I just put it on, and it's like a puzzle, you know, if it's perfectly back on there again and the bolts are tight enough that it does create somewhat of a seal. I don't know if I should do that, because if I did that and it didn't work, I'd have to take all that crap apart again. So I might have to get a new gasket just to put that thing back on. But first I got to learn how to put that thing back on, because I can't get it back on. So I'm gonna try to do that. And in the meantime, I guess I'm gonna try to put that bolt back in. So I was just wiggling it around for a while, you know, and it popped in. Pretty sure it's good now. It wouldn't let me go in any other way, so I'm sure it popped in well. I'm gonna do it right. I'm gonna order a gasket and wait for it to come. In the meantime, it's on there so nothing falls in there. I have to remember to oil the seal before I put it in next time and clean it all out. And yeah. So now I'm gonna take this carburetor off and see if I can get that bolt back in. So this thing came off of here. Right? And this looks busted. Like this part is supposed to be in there. So now when you stick the bolt in, it goes nowhere. It goes all the way in, and I can't even look. Goes all the way in. So something's up with that. It's busted. So because this busted, right? It popped out, caused the carburetor to be loose on here, right? So it wasn't getting a good seal, causing the high revolutions, which made Pete think that it was the governor, which makes sense, you know? But I'm thinking, since we opened this up and we can't find anything wrong with it, I'm thinking this is the problem, not that. So I'm gonna take this cover off and see what I can do to get this bolt solidified in there, you know? I hope that's it. But in the meantime, I'm gonna have to order a new gasket for this, and I'll take that off and see if I can put this back on. I might have to do some welding. I like welding. So I took off that panel and I put a bolt on the end of it. So now when I tighten the carburetor on this side, it should hold flush to that area without that bolt sticking out. So as long as you got a flush seal from the carburetor onto the thing, it should be good. Hopefully. The panel's back on, ground wire. It's kind of loose, but remember, it's only there with the bolt. When you have to tighten the, well, now I'm looking at this, how long it is, and maybe it won't tighten enough to get the tension. Oh, we'll see. So I tested it, and with the air cleaner box, it gives it about that much more space. So that should take up that part right there. So once I have the air cleaner box on, it should take up this room for all this, the threads. So it should grip on nice and tight, and the carburetor should be flush with the engine block. That was the problem, I think. That little bolt that broke and came out was preventing the carburetor from having a perfect seal onto the engine block, and that was causing the high revs. It wasn't anything internal. Unfortunately, I had to break it to find that out. You know what I'm saying? I had to break the crack, the seal, I mean. So I'm not going to put anything on now. Just have to get a new gasket for that. You guys know if I should use if I could use gasket maker to do that, or is that like a head gasket? It's too much pressure and you need a true gasket for that. I just get a true gasket for it. Do it right, and hopefully that's it. You know, put a battery in here and fire it up. But probably going to take me a week to get that gasket. Anyway, so that was my experience taking apart this Kohler Courage 21 with a suspected bad governor. However, we found out that it seems to be good. Nothing seems to be wrong on the internals, and that the culprit of my buddy's problem was carburetor wasn't attached on correctly, because possibly during the time that he was riding it, something came jarred loose and pushed it out, which caused the carburetor to become loose onto the engine block. That was probably it, because Pete was saying how it was running good before, you know, and he was riding it around, and that broke while he was riding it around, and it pushed the carburetor out loose, and then that's what caused the revs. See, so that logic completely makes sense, you know. Anyway, see you guys next time on Mowers and Blowers.